Hello, guys. Can you guys hear us okay? Everyone. Cool. Cool. Did we lose anyone? We all, I think we have everyone. Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. This is possibly one of the first talk for the business and product track, and it's a day one of India GDC. This is like the 13th year of the India Game Developer Conference, and thanks, Oliver. And just so you know, this is possibly one of the only events across the world which is driven by folks from the industry. What we call is by the industry for the industry event. And before we start, I would like to say that we'd like to thank all the sponsors who have been supporting us in organizing this, and also the volunteers. We have like 40 volunteers across like 15 or 20 organizations who are coming in and supporting this event. So some of them are doing operations, some of them are working on content, and there is a large team which works on the content too. So thank you so much, the volunteers, and thank you so much for all the sponsors too. Our presenting sponsor, Unreal Engine, gold sponsors, MPL, Jungle Games, AWS, Glance, and we have like few legacy sponsors who have been supporting us, like Genshin, Lakshya, and Yasno. We have bronze sponsors, Poly and Game On, and Hyper Casual Track has been sponsored by Sunday. And we have an IP Connect section, which has been sponsored by Succeed Innovation Fund, which is based out of Hyderabad. So thank you so much for tuning in. We have like great lineup of speakers and great panel coming in. So Anuj Chandan is from Crafton. Again, I think he'll introduce himself, but he will take over and introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the backstage once the panel is done. Bye now.
Cool. Thanks, Imtiaz. Hey, guys. Good evening and good morning to Joseph. He's had an early morning. So this is one of the oldest panels we've been having in IGDC. I remember we've been having this panel for the last 5 years. Just to give an idea about our track record, we were not correctly able to predict PUBG's success. We were not able to predict Ludo King success. So yeah, it's the bar is pretty low in that aspect in predicting the how the gaming market will be shaping up in India globally. But it's generally a fun panel where we sort of try and analyze what's happening in the industry at an India and a global level, and try to see where the industry is sort of making gradual shifts. The sudden shifts are not predictable at all. That's the nature of the industry that we love. But yeah, so that's it. I'm Anuj Tandon. I am heading corporate development for Crafton in India and Middle Eastern market. I will let these guys introduce themselves. Ankush, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Ankush, I'm the founder and CEO of Jungle Games, and here to pick up on the low bar and excited to not be able to predict anything accurately for next year again. So good to meet you all. Thanks, Anuj.
Right. Joseph, how about you?
Hi, I'm Joseph Kim, the CEO of a startup, a gaming startup working on a new, exciting free-to-play shooter game. We'll be based in Bangalore from January, and yeah, that's me.
Yep. Oliver?
Hi, yeah, Oliver Jones here, CEO of Bombay Play. I've been living and working and breathing India for the last 10 years. Worked at Zynga, also co-founded Moonfrog.
Right. You cannot be calling yourself a breathing India unless you live in Delhi. So that's breathing in India, right? Akshay?
Hey, thanks, Anuj. Currently, I'm heading a bunch of games in Zynga India, including the farm games, a bunch of games across genre. We're also building new IP in India, so quite excited to be in this panel. I always think of prediction panels as competing against monkeys throwing darts. If we do better than that, we'll probably have done a good job.
Yeah. I mean, we need to call it a yearly roundup panel rather than a predictions panel to make it sound more cool from next year. Yeah. So, guys, how we'll go about this is we have a bunch of topics for the audience. We have sort of I've circulated it around. We'll go, based on that, and quickly take 2 to 3 minutes to sort of get your thoughts on them, and then want to have as many questions as we can. So, make it more interactive, right? And I will start with the elephant in the room: NFTs and blockchain. So that's something which is sort of some say it's a fundamental shift in the way game economies are designed, how open world economies in games are designed in terms of it's somewhat reminiscent of the free to play era. And I'll start with you, Joseph. You've been sort of in the as a startup founder, but also as a very famous person in the sort of who talks to a lot and takes a lot of interviews and hosts a lot of panels. You want to get your opinion. Are NFTs real or hype? Do we in gaming already have certain pieces of them solved, like CS:GO items on Steam were available and things like that. So we have some touch points to touch. So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts on NFTs are I'm kind of a short-term bear, long-term bull, meaning that I do think that there's a little bit of hype around NFTs, and I think that not everybody even the people who spend to acquire NFTs really understands them fully. And so I would say that, the long-term vision in terms of the ownership of digital assets makes sense, especially when we look at society in general, right? Like not everyone's going to be able to own their own house, their own, own stock ownership in Tesla and things of that nature. And so like having the ability to own digital assets for a large part of the world is going to be something that's important in terms of having a sense of ownership. And then I think just further in the future, there's like this notion of a digital kind of online presence of some kind, meaning that the way in which people flex in society today, whether it's, hey, look at my big house, hey, look at my expensive car, hey, look at my really nice phone, is going to manifest probably in the form of some type of, whether it's a digital wallet or something where the way that you are able to show off in the future is likely enabled by some form of NFT. But I do think like right now, there's a little bit of a craze in NFTs. I think short term we might be a little bit of a hype cycle. There might be a little bit of a correction there potentially is my personal view. But I do think longer term that NFTs are the future. And from a cross game perspective, the only thing that I worry about is like what is the monetization model, or because when you launch a new game, and if you've already got a bunch of digital assets from a previous game that you bring forward, then that would potentially have an impact on the economic model of the new game. And so I think if that's kind of figured out in a good way, then I think that's great. But that may also just mean longer, like what we've been seeing in as we know in terms of like Zynga Forever franchises, like some games last for a really long time. And so I would just say that the caveat there would be to think about the economy. But those are my thoughts.
Great, Joseph. That's very intriguing. Following up with you, Akshay. Zynga has been recently in the news for hiring a head of gaming blockchain and stuff. So, obviously there is intent in the company, but would like to get your personal thoughts as well on this space.
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. And I think the timing of the announcement and the timing of this panel, you can't time it better. And this has probably been the question I've been asked the most every single day the past few days. My personal take is that I'm very similar to Joseph, actually, which is that NFTs are a space with a lot of potential. But I do think that when you look at a typical product or a business life cycle of such a mechanism, I think we are in the hype phase, right? We're going to take a while for this to really stabilize. I think we're curious to see how this will pan out. But I do agree that from a long-term perspective, like looking at the deep human desire of ownership, right? That's going to remain. That's not going to fundamentally change. Feeling a sense of identity from that ownership, all of that is going to remain. I think from all of those perspectives, I think NFTs are or rather a larger, I'd say, both going even beyond NFTs, like looking at crypto plus NFTs as a space, I think is here to stay. I think how it'll evolve, there's a whole bunch of parameters and also ecosystem building that needs to happen. I think one of the aspects I'd like to touch on is on the behavior of online to offline, right? Like I think in gaming we don't do that very well today. If NFTs actually provide a platform to essentially what you earn online or what you kind of interact with online, either you take it across cross-platform. I think Zynga is now publicly looking at cross-platform plays, right? That's one aspect. The other aspect is I've been really impressed with like how Axie Infinity has taken the concept of play to earn and really kind of drill down. And I was reading this statistic which said that like I think the mean salary in Philippines was about 3,200 USD a year. And if you're running 3 Axie Infinity accounts, you could actually earn a living out of it, right? Which means that the notion of work, the notion of what you think of work would fundamentally change with all of the play to earn titles that are potentially going to come up by NFT. And I'm particularly excited with that, right? And I think the way Axie has, for instance, set up the blockchain, how it's encouraging users to kind of monetize, sell, and trade via that blockchain has been fascinating for me to learn, and I'm personally kind of intrigued. I think the biggest, from an India perspective, just the massive tailwinds we have in terms of adoption of crypto. I mean, I think the actual number of users lies somewhere between 2 crore to 10 crore, depending on which source you look at. But nevertheless, I mean, even the most bearish estimate is super strong. And a lot of that is coming from tier 2 cities, right, which is fascinating. So I think the fact that you're going to places where ownership is a deeper innate need, and solving that via NFTs, I think is a fascinating thing. We'll have to wait and see how it pans out.
Thanks, Akshay. That's a good segue for me to sort of bring in, Ankush here. Ankush, play to earn is in India as a concept. Blockchain gaming, crypto. We are still as a country sort of figuring out what's our, as a country, what type of gamers we are. Here comes a disruption, which is sort of fundamentally can be very transformative in its entire nature. Potentially it can be. So we want to get your thoughts, on blockchain and crypto gaming in general and the play to earn model, and how does it impact India?
Sure. I'll just say one quick comment that I think most NFT startups will shut down pretty soon. But there's going to be few that survive and are very, very, very strong. So I think it sort of calibrates Joseph's opinion on that. Coming to crypto and gaming in general, and then tying it together with the India landscape, I think anytime, one thing we've learned, right? The one prediction I think we've been fairly right about, I would say, as an industry is freemium, at least with localized content, is still not a big driver of revenue. Even to date, and hopefully Oliver and other few other folks can change that, but even till date, the sort of top grossing games that you see are more on the, published by Korea or the US or whatnot. I think the play to earn model is very interesting because the one thing that we know has worked well in India so far when it comes to localized content is skilled gaming. So I think when you combine what seems to be sort of more, less risky, more fun, and in the Philippines, people who are driving for Uber are now playing on Axie Infinity because that gives a means to live. I think that wave is very powerful. So I think I do see that becoming an opportunity in India. Now, keep in mind the Axie Infinity and the likes thereof, the economies are so challenging. Those people have been iterating on that stuff for a while and they nailed it. If we're able to do that for us as a country, then I think there's a huge potential of that specific vertical, which is play to earn. As far as crypto and gaming in general goes, and the whole trend, right? Like when you start sort of bringing all of those worlds together, to me, the one thing I've always maintained, I feel fairly strongly, but nobody knows, all of us predicted 2020 as a world pretty well, as we know. So I think the one thing we can say is that there's a direct correlation when it comes to, at least in the Western side, with where Bitcoin and crypto in general is heading, where Ethereum is heading, and where the wagering or the trading of NFTs occurs, right? while the user base in India trading crypto is small, the volumes are still very, very strong. And think of it this way. It might be tough for all of us to understand this, but let's say instead of owning baseball cards as kids or something else, if as a 5 or 8 or 9-year-old, you're talking about which NFTs you own, that's quite interesting, right? That's how you're growing up. So it's a completely different dimension. But I think very interesting. I think crypto plus gaming, there's definitely going to be a few winners. Now, there's some regulatory hurdles on both ends, but I think we're going to overall see some really wonderful companies emerge that can bring a confluence of the two in a beautiful way, create the right economy, not just put a shit coin in a token that makes no sense, but actually create a powerful gaming ecosystem that combines crypto, that combines NFTs, versus just a Me Too site that's selling a bunch of JPEGs and animations.
Understood. Thanks, Ankush. Oliver, coming to you, I mean, first of all, crypto gaming in India, your thoughts on the ecosystem, but also as a startup founder, of a young studio, are you tempted to use NFTs to, raise some or increase your valuation to get some more startup capital?
It's certainly tempting to, I think standard startup valuations in like casual gaming is maybe like 10x your revenues or something like that, but we're seeing far higher multiples in crypto, so it is tempting to unlock those higher valuations.
Yep.
But at the same time, you have to pitch what you're actually doing and sort of be authentic. So I think a lot of us are still learning the ropes. Like, it's all very new to everyone, so you have to get educated before making a move in that space. But I think what Ankush was saying about the baseball cards is really what's driving a lot of people to convert, because it's a very intuitive, very straightforward analogy that everyone understands. And yeah, just because it's so intuitive that, well, first of all, I think in the last 5 years, 10 years, social games bring people together, great. And now the other intuition is money motivates people. So why would you not try and combine these two things? It's an intuitive combination, right? Well, I think there are lots of other ingredients here that I think Akshay and Ankush sort of brought up that also make sense for a lot of game developers. So Akshay was saying about the number of crypto traders, I think 10 crore or 10.5 crore is a bullish estimate. So yeah, that's true. And I think it's really interesting how at that level, there would be more crypto traders in India than there would be stock traders. Like, I think the number of trading accounts is about 8 million. And if the number of crypto traders is like, 100 million, then, I mean, that sounds like a way high number though for India. Like, can really 1 out of every 15 or 20 people really be trading in crypto? I'm not so sure about that, but let's say it's sort of directionally correct, then it kind of makes sense for, I mean, if India truly is like top 4 in crypto trading in terms of volume as well, it really does make sense for crypto gaming to become big in India. So that's an opportunity. I mean, not just for Indian developers, but for the whole world.
Right, Ollie. That's great. So one line prediction from all of you on the NFT and the crypto market. NFTs bullish, bearish in 2022. Joseph, we'll start with you. Bullish or bearish on NFTs in 2022?
Bearish short term, so bearish 2022.
Ankush?
NFTs in India specifically?
No, anywhere, globally, gaming.
Oh, I think I already said most startups die, some survive and do very well.
Yeah, Ali?
I'll put a number prediction on this. Let's see. So I'll just put it crypto in India. So RMG as a monetization vehicle kind of doubled up monetization in 2021 in India. So if you add crypto on top of that and couple it together with, all the crypto traders that are apparently exist in India, I'd say like it could add like another 2 billion to the annual revenue that could be generated from India, assuming there's a good product out there.
Right. Akshay?
So that would make 5 billion total annual revenue for India 2022.
Got it. Akshay, NFTs and gaming?
I mean, my sense is I think NFTs, I agree that it's an experimental space, but I'll just go out on a limb personally and say that you will have NFT-based companies worth more than 10 billion, I'd say, in 2022, cumulatively. And while Axie's shown us the way, I think they might be different models. I think it might not be replicas of the same, but looking forward, I'm just going to put my neck out and say that it's going to be more than 10 billion in terms of value for 2022.
Wow. So basically, you are telling all the young developers to maybe focus on this in an indirect way. I'm just kidding. So cool. So we'll just move to a different topic. Like now, this is sort of NFTs and cryptos. We've all made our predictions, and we've analyzed that. How about something that in 2021 sort of kind of changed the way how maybe Indian developers and global developers looked at a lot of the marketing, the IDFA issue with Apple and the privacy and issues that have been surrounding, right? And Joseph, again, I will start with you. As you have also a bird's eye view, sitting out of for some time at least out of California. What do you see like? Has it become more difficult for young publishers or smaller studios to reach out to market rather using this the IDFA issues? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a story still being played out currently, because even though there has been some loss from IDFA deprecation in terms of targeting, that a lot of the SDK ad networks, for example, still have some level of targeting based upon fingerprinting and things of that nature. So I would say that it's still unclear what the longer term impact will be, and depending on what Apple does in terms of cracking down on things like that. But I would say that I personally take a optimistic perspective for small developers when it comes to the loss of IDFA deprecation. Well, a couple of things. One, I would say from an admon perspective, I think contextual based targeting has offset to some degree the loss of more specific targeting. But then the optimistic view that I have for smaller developers or publishers is more around the fact that when you think about, and I think you have to think about it on a genre by genre basis, right? So like the games in which have very high LTV and high payback periods, right? For example, Social Casino as an example. The barrier to entry for those games for a smaller developer is going to be pretty significant, right? Because then you would need to, the barrier that the incumbents can build based upon super long, like 2-year payback windows against a very high LTV and with a lot of data against those kinds of play models. And so as a smaller developer, if you are targeting a space that's more mid-core to hardcore in nature, in some of those genres, I do think that we're going to be able to see new, emerging insurgents that can attack those spaces without as high of a moat as we've seen in the past. And so my view on that is hopefully more optimistic rather than pessimistic.
Understood. Ollie, from your perspective, like you guys are building games for a global audience, does this issue of better targeting and the IDF impact you as a studio, or is it not a priority at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely does. However, sort of us bootstrap startups kind of are currently dragging our, bootstrap boots over to Android so that we can get better, ROAS data on our creative testing. I think that's the real issue here is the thorn in our side really is ROAS measurement. With diminished ability to do that on iOS, we really have to look for alternate ways to do it. However, in the casual space, I think, Joseph's correct. It doesn't affect the casual space as much as we're typically trying to optimize for, conversion events that would typically occur within the first sort of 30-day period. So even with SK Ad Network, you still have those sort of 63 events that you can utilize and optimize for. So the marketing approach now has become sort of broad targeting or interest targeting with these sorts of conversion events, and that's you can survive. It's not ideal, but yeah, you can survive.
Got it. And coming, from a bootstrap startup and a smaller studio to someone like, Zynga, Akshay, how are you seeing the impact? Because when you're running a multiple portfolio of games, which has, multiple touch points and user acquisition as a tool is super important. Does that impact your sort of overall CPIs around that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, Anuj. And we all went through that phase of uncertainty, right? Of knowing where the CPS would land and not having the means for an attribution. I think a couple of things that Zynga is doing, and these are publicly announced, have kind of worked well for us. And we're, while it's still a lot of it is work in progress. I think one was our acquisition of Chartboost. We looked at it from different dimensions. Not only in terms of high quality content that we can deliver, but direct player relationships. Obviously, built a massive reach because now you had a mobile first advertising leader and also a full stack ad tech model, right? Which we could apply across Zynga's, not only Zynga's game portfolio, but also across Chartboost's ad partners. The other thing that I think it will play out well for Zynga in the long term is our plans that we've announced a few quarters back to build our own ad network. And we want to kind of take the nuts and bolts of the ad network and handle the technical work in-house, look at like key components of the entire stack, right? Both demand side and supply side, build an exchange layer and also some type of attribution. So I think that will give us benefits at scale. But nevertheless, I think the unknowns are still not, I'd say still are playing out. And as even the Android ecosystem kind of leverages or kind of moves towards this, it's going to become, we'll have to see what the new normal looks like and figure out new strategies to deal with it. And that's been our stance.
Awesome. So in a way that you guys are thinking as large publishers, maybe consolidation of ad networks as part of the publishing strategy is the way that you guys are thinking about, as one of preempting this challenge. Understood.
Yeah, I would probably add as a startup also, from our side, it's diversification of the ad networks that we're using, especially those that are still, utilizing fingerprinting while it's still available.
Right. Yeah. So that's you're giving out the juicy stuff. I like that. Cool. So now shifting gears to much in that sense. iOS is still, if anyone is focusing on India, is still a global problem, not a really Indian problem because of just 2% market share that iOS devices have, even though the revenue is pretty significant. But shifting gears to India and Ankush, as you are the OG of the real money gaming space, sort of seen this space evolve over the past 8 to 10 years now, I believe, and you've sort of seen how from a single game of Rummy, how it has changed to a multi-game platform and into this creating billions of dollars of value and valuations and all of those things, and in revenues as well. Now we can finally say that. So what are your thoughts? How has the market been since you've not interacted on this panel? How has the market been for you maybe this year, and how do you see sort of that panning out for the next year in terms of formats of the RMG as well as the market size?
Sure. So I think there's three main verticals when it comes to games of skill. That'd be your sort of games that are traditional, that first had a footing in India, like Rummy. Then there's DFS, daily fantasy sports, and then there's more skill but casual games that you see on a lot of platforms. So I think if we look at net revenues and growth, there's still substantial growth, right? The industry has been growing 2020, as unfortunate as it was for the world and personally for many of us, I think from an industry standpoint of gaming generally, it was a huge, massive year, right? Casual or otherwise. For skill gaming, arguably it was the best year that we've had. Now, thankfully, we've seen that growth sustain. So for us, 2020, while there was a couple of quarters that saw a massive uptick, as an industry, we're used to seeing and very thankful that we're used to seeing that kind of growth where we grow in double digits every year. 50 to 100% has sort of been the annual growth for Junglee and most of the skill gaming industry. I think that will continue to stay, right? We've seen no signs of a slowdown. In fact, for us, as Oliver and Akshay were talking about scaling, we've just, we keep scaling our marketing to kind of figure out where's our sweet spot, and we haven't gotten there yet, right? So we're not running into the challenge that we're spending more dollars. And yes, Oliver, I came from the same journey, so have a lot more dollars to spend today than we did 10 years ago. But even with that, we're not seeing any plateaus or peaks where we're unable to spend it. So we keep doubling and tripling our marketing budgets year on year. Industry will grow. As far as what other products will emerge, obviously we've been very conservative, always on the right side, educating the same way the crypto industry and the top platforms are educating the policymakers and the regulators. We're doing the same thing with gaming. One thing that worries us and concerns us is making sure that a skill game is truly a game of skill. And we see a lot of innovation happening there. Now, some of it is really wise innovation, but the day a Ludo or roulette wheel becomes a game of skill because of the dice roll or the time you had, it starts getting murky. But I foresee that we'll see a lot more of the esports or M sports, as you call them, those genres take off. Today, they drive a lot of traffic, they drive a lot of users, but they don't drive most of the revenue. Most of the revenue still comes from DFS and rummy and games like that. But we're going to start to see that change merge. As a company, we're very aggressively looking at who are those guys that are bringing the confluence of a new format or a new type of a game of skill, and then potentially combining it with some of the new age tech and then also what's desirable, such as NFTs. So that's where our head is at. But ultimately looking at, this would be continue to be a big year for us into 2022.
Right. Ankush, just follow up on that. Do you see Indian startups going to other countries for growth, or do you see, because the kind of innovation and the teams that have been backed with the capital chasing, a lot of talent has been going to the real money gaming area, right? And that's a matter of market economics. Do you see Indian companies really taking on, say, the US market, maybe challenging even DraftKings of the world?
I don't. I think there's those markets are well saturated, publicly listed companies, not just one of them, many of them, and all the way down to mid-stage, growth stage businesses that have a war chest of capital and have been in the market for a decade, right? So just as I would say it would be very difficult, and international brands have tried, but it would be very difficult for just a brand, because they have brand ownership and a wide user base in the rest of the world, to come and challenge some of the DFS or the rummy operators in India. I think it's equally difficult, if not more, because you also run into one other issue. Cost of acquisition is, of course, especially in the skill gaming space, is high, but it's substantially higher in the West, right? So your capital will work, and then payback periods, all of that. When you start looking at that combined with the companies that are there, it's a very difficult space to crack. Now, keep in mind, anything that's difficult doesn't mean it won't have an outlier, right? So we'd ought to be fools predicting that one company couldn't crack it. Do I see it as a trend and happening easily? Absolutely not. I think it's very difficult. It's very challenging. DraftKings and FanDuel have been warred with each other. I don't think they could crack the DFS market in the US themselves, right, as the two competitors. So a lot had to change and go right for them for that to happen. So I don't see that. I think we'll try maybe a company succeeds eventually, but I think it's very, very difficult.
Got it. Cool. Now, sort of shifting gears to the gaming genres of India, right? And just try to educate the audience on a very curious question I have, and I'll start with you, Joseph. Is what is it about battle royale? And I know you have some experience there in terms of the battle royale genre that especially Indians are in love with, right? If you look at the top 10 grossing in India, there are 5 battle royal games now there, right? Top 5 has 3. So, I mean, in terms of MAU, only behind probably a Ludo or a Carom, but significantly higher ARPUs. So, how can you sort of describe this phenomenon? And it just keeps growing every year. It's not stopping. Like we thought that it's a fad, but it's like last 3 years, it's just grown from strength to strength.
Yeah, so in terms of like why Battle Royale is so popular and why I think it's such a strong format. So for me, I actually look at these kinds of games from 2 different sorts of lenses. The first is in terms of what a framework that I call structure, story, and climax. Meaning, when you look at just any type of entertainment, like for movies in particular, there's something called the Hollywood formula. And what the Hollywood formula suggests is that for a hit movie, you want to structure the movie in terms of 3 acts. And so when you look at a battle royale game, for example, is there a notion of an early game, mid game, late game in which different kinds of strategic decisions and a different kind of gameplay emerge in terms of the structure of the game itself, right? The second part, story, has to do with the variability in the game. And this is something I got from Ninja, because when Ninja was asked, why is Battle Royale so popular? He had mentioned every game is like a new story, right? And so that variability in the gameplay and the ability for the game itself to tell a kind of story within the overall framework of a early, mid, late game structure, I think makes it very powerful. And the final thing is climax, meaning is there a high climax end game, right? In which there's a very exciting part to the end game in which, the emotions of the player are brought to, a very high point. So that's the first lens in which I view battle royale types games. And the second lens has to do with this notion of human emotions and latent user needs. And so I believe that games actually are a manifestation of some kind of latent human desire. And when you think about battle royale games, one of the things that happens at the end is you get to say, hey, look at me. I beat 99 other players. I'm important. I'm somebody that's skilled. And it's similar to the talk that we had around NFTs in terms of some form of why will NFTs potentially become very popular in the future? Because it might become a form of social flex. And so from that perspective, if you win a battle royale and you can let other people know how good you are, how important you are, that you're a person of skill and value, that's a second lens in which I view this type of game that fulfills actually across all of the different, sort of metrics there. So that's what I think.
So just following up on that with Akshay, what do you think about Indian gamers really taking to it? Like I know globally, Joseph touched about. Why do you think the Indian gamers are so in love with this genre?
I mean, I've been thinking about it too, Anuj. And I have. I mean, I'd say like some overlapping elements with Joseph. I like the articulation of Joseph in terms of how players intrinsically feel about it, and I feel like that's probably the core of why we are seeing the success, right? I think in battle royale as a format, right, we see that all players start in some state of vulnerability. Like nobody has a distinct advantage, and you're not saying that one player is inherently better than the other when the game starts off, right? Or when the format starts off. It's available easily. At least in India, availability is a big challenge, right? When games are easily available, so it's easy for you to get on. And even if you're not skilled, you do feel that you have a chance, right? You do feel like you can compete. And that, I think, is a superpower, right? Not many games. I mean, for instance, if you played a real game of tennis with a professional, like you wouldn't even step on court, right? So I think there is that large kind of sense that I can compete, like, and me and like my team can do well. I think the best format that I can think of that explains this is probably like Maslow's hierarchy, right? As in, if you were to map that to battle royale, I think I think there is human motivation, right? We all understand that games always are representative of a lot of latent human motivations, definitely. I think that when you look at the lowest tiers of Maslow's hierarchy, you look at, physiological safety, right? Like, and you're always in a battle royale mode, you're always looking to survive, because survival is really the first step, right? And from that sense, it does appeal to a lot of us, right? When we're put in a corner, we want to fight. And needless to say, like, being in India, you do see a lot of that, right? And you build that resilience. I feel like that is a strong connect. I think the belonging, esteem, like, the love kind of tiers in battle royale, they are, I think, the core of it, right? Like, we want it to be a social aspect as well as a competitive aspect, and that's something that I think goes very well. I think the final tier of self-actualization, as Maslow calls it, is when you actually become skilled, which is what Joseph also alluded to, which is, when you actually win it, you feel like you've kind of overcome all of this, and that. So the win moment is super gratifying, and I think it's also aspirational for other folks to look at and get inspired to try it out. And I think, like, for a geography like India, for the circumstances, social, economic conditions we are in, there is definitely a huge correlation with what this format brings and how it can appeal to players. And I think it's going to continue growing, because there is such a fundamental kind of relationship between these two areas.
Awesome. Great answer, guys. Oli, I'll just touch quickly for 2 minutes on this, and before we move to the next question, what are your thoughts?
About Battle Royale in India? So I think it's particularly interesting that Battle Royale is especially effective in India. And I think a lot of people kind of miss the point on this. I think what Joseph and actually are saying is also true. But I think there's also a broader social context here, which I'm not sure that many people see if they're not on the ground, which is that a battle royale game, 4-person squad, that kind of game maps on well to the context in which people play games in India anyway. People, they hang out in groups of friends on their mobiles and they play games together. And we saw this, when I was back at Moonfrog launching like Team Patty and things, where we went to sort of tier 2, tier 3 cities and studied how people play, and they sat together in the same room and played Team Patty and Ludo and all these things. Now with Battle Royale, it's effectively the same construct applied to sort of a higher fidelity game, and there's. I think, as Joseph was saying, like, the story that you experience as a group is always different. And you have to really, it sort of forms stronger bonds as well. You have to, in order to stand the best chance in this game, you have to rely on your buddies, right? It's playing random just doesn't cut it. You really have to loop in your friends. So I think this really works well within India, because, just the way society, it is kind of mapped out.
Got it. Cool. So now shifting gears, and this is something which Ankush, I'll come to you first. Is we've been sort of talking about in-app purchase as a business model growing in India like every year. So will 2022 be any different? I mean, just to give some App Annie numbers, we are sort of growing almost one of the highest growth markets for IIP. The base might be small, but still the growth is there. So your thoughts, from a global perspective as well as Indian perspective on the IIPs as such as a business model.
Yeah, I think from a global perspective, my word's not even necessary, because I think the industry continues to grow pretty well. I haven't kept up with the growth.
Sorry, it's global games in India as well as the Indian publishers.
I see. Okay. So I think on the global side, in fact, I think you and I were discussing this a little while ago, but I think because of the quality of content, right? I remember having panels 10 years ago, and one of the panels was like, why gaming and why India? And I was like, there's a billion of us and there's no quality content. And because we had the real first breed of gaming companies back then, and the content was just horrible, right? So I think what changed with the Western content, which we've seen come into India now, PUBG, all the game, Free Fire, everything else that's coming in, with people just getting more accustomed to pay, that market has gone up substantially from what I understand in the last 2 years, and will continue to do so. It may sound, and it is, a very, very small market where the entire ecosystem is smaller than one successful game in the West, but I think that'll continue to climb when it comes to Western content. Coming to more localized content, Oliver, besides Ludo, I don't know what else is on the horizon, but I think
I don't know either. I don't know.
So I think my guess there is not much. I mean, there's been 2 games in 10, 12 years that we've all been a part of this industry, and they were also not like launched by seasoned vets that put together a sophisticated studio and a team. It was kind of good luck and could, like, mad props and respect to those studios that were able to, luck finds people who sort of work hard to get there. But I don't think that happening consistently. So I don't think we're going to see any material difference there. But I think on the Western studio side, they're going to be continuing to have some high quality content that monetizes and grows the industry. But on the Indian localized IAP side, I'm not so bullish.
Got it. Cool. No, I think contrarian views are always helpful. I have a different view, but yeah, that's me. Ollie, just coming to the casual space, and you're sort of active on it. How do you see that still going in India, or are you looking for greener pastures with high ARPUs outside? Like, what's the thought when you're and talk it with 2 lenses? One as a startup bootstrapping, trying to get revenues growth, and one who's trying to push for the idealistic world.
Sure. I mean, I think I'll start off by, like, as a founder who's been 10 years in India, co-founded one of the most successful kind of gaming startups building local content. One might expect me to be a bull on the topic, but I'm really not. Sorry, Anuj. I think, the market is predicted to grow to 7 billion by 2025. And of course, casual gaming will remain relevant as the most accessible category, attracting the highest volume of downloads. So it can't really be ignored. But that being said, the whole gaming industry is evolving and growing. I think, my prediction here is that these geo-specific approaches, you may start to see fewer and fewer of them play out as new trends like Web3 sort of capture the minds and imaginations of people. Sure, India may reach 7 or even 10 billion in sort of annual revenue from games, but what does that mean for the world? Does that mean, it's going to be over 100 billion market? And it's just very tempting. Everyone wants a ticket to the moon, right? Why would you limit yourself by strategy alone? So yeah, that's at least our thoughts as a smaller gaming studio. We want a piece of the bigger pie. We don't want to limit ourselves from the outset. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, Joseph, your thoughts on the casual social gaming in India? I'm looking for a good answer here, and good means you're bullish on it.
Yeah, I think from a gameplay perspective, I'm probably the last person you want to ask about, like, the Indian gaming market specifically. I'm betting on India for the game development community. So I would say I'm more bullish in terms of the acceleration of the game development community to become, the next China or the next, Turkey. So that's what I'm more focused on rather than the specific market itself, which unfortunately I'm just not that familiar with.
Yep. Akshay, your thoughts? I mean, Zynga did try something specifically for India. What are your thoughts?
I think it's an interesting question and something that we've been focusing on for a bit, like in terms of what does India as a market mean, right? Like, I think a couple of tailwinds that are helping, like in terms of, for instance, on the monetization side, like UPI transactions are a real thing, microtransactions are a real thing. There are some of these tailwinds, but we haven't seen that materialize into, the notion that India being a DAU farm, right, which was always the notion that we had versus a monetizing farm, and all the public data supports it. But I think it's changing, and that's my perspective, but not at the rate that we'd like it. I think the other perspective that Joseph was alluding to, and we've been increasingly more successful at, is at Zynga building like games and managing games from a worldwide audience view, right? I think there I can see that, in the past 2 years or so, just the quality of scale, the type of folks, the quality of entrants into gaming as a profession, I feel is going up. So I think overall, while that is not directly going to contribute to India as a market, like I think our reputation in the game development space will hopefully get better, and there are some chinks there, right? And I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I think that it is still, I'd say, below expectations, right? But we are, we hope to change it. Like, there need to be market makers in this space.
Anuj, give us the bull answer. We need the
family, man. All of you are so short on India. That's crazy. No,
we're short on one specific genre for next year. To be clear,
gaming and social gaming, especially, and casual gaming, I still think India will be. We'll in fact become the drivers of this particular market. If you've not seen, like, hyper casual as a market is sort of being led by Indian downloads and monetization through ad revenue. So I think that will continue happening. But yeah, my thoughts on maybe some other panel. I'm the moderator, so we'll not go there. So we have like 8 minutes. So I want to quickly take questions, but I just want like quick one-line answers from you guys, and I'll start with you, Ankush. What is the 2022 one M&A prediction that you are seeing in 2022? And I'll ask for India. Like, what is will we have $1 billion exit? Will we have say a $500 million like we had for Play Simple? So what's one M&A prediction, and what is one genre you think that will break through in India?
One skill gaming company will go public, and there will be massive consolidation across the board, which may include free-to-play. But you asked for one, so I'll stop at one. I think we'll see one massive acquisition or potential publicly listed company come out. We had one this year, right?
Yeah.
Nazara was this year or last year? Yeah.
Yes, this year.
Yeah.
So you're saying one more IPO?
No, we're part of a structure that's we're controlled by a company that's public now, but not us. But there will be another one. Fairly confident, but you said it's a low bar for this panel, so I could pretty much say anything I want, and I'll be.
No, but Ankush already was part of this M&A story, so he's already, in a way, sort of spoken for. So and one breakthrough genre, skill gaming or casual, whatever you choose.
Neither. I think it's going to be more. This is where I feel like we'll see something that we haven't. It could be storytelling, like some of the stuff that Krafton's done. It could be something else, but I don't think it's. I think it's something else, and I don't know what it is. Sorry.
Cool, Joseph. Your thoughts about maybe not India specific, but maybe one breakthrough gaming genre globally that will it be Web3 or what?
I think that I feel like there is going to be an opportunity for like a game in more of the survival genre, like, Last Day on Earth, but more social in nature. I think that's an open opportunity. I also think that maybe one other opportunity to look at is just match 3 RPG genre. I think that's just been an open space that's been sort of declining, but certainly has a lot of opportunity. I can't speak in terms of M&A for India, but if I were to have two potentially bold predictions, but two companies to watch for, not necessarily they'll get taken out in next year, but I would say watch out for Tactile and watch out for Zynga.
Great. So, Ollie, one breakthrough gaming genre in 2022 and one, sort of M&A investment prediction of 2022.
I think I have that weird genre that might make it. But it's not hyper casual. It's not hybrid casual. It's hyper social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that combines hyper casual and social is fine with me.
Yeah. I mean, and what hypersocial really will be about is developers realizing there's a huge amount of monetization potential, a bit like how RMG games realized off of the App Store and managed to scale it. So there's this combination of a lot of monetization options off the App Store and potential kind of frictionless distribution and a distribution advantage over iOS and Android apps. And also, just removing the friction to social, which is currently like way too high, having to do all these social logins and whatnot. It would be nice just to click a link and join your friends and, have games be more like pizza and like bring people together.
Right. Great.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
I have an investment. I'll have an investment in India prediction. But this is a bit of a low blow. I predict Bombay Play will close our Series A pretty damn soon. We're nearly totally subscribed, so any investors out there, give me a call.
Cool. Akshay?
Hey, good luck.
Really quickly, I want to take one or two questions from audience, so really quickly.
Yeah, really quickly, two things. Like I think from a Zynga view, we've made our stance pretty clear publicly, which is not necessarily a genre, but essentially to go cross-platform, right? And our acquisition of Vectra Games kind of makes that very clear. We've already announced that Natural Motion is working on a game, right? Which will come out soon. So that is exciting. I think from a non-Zynga view, just a personal view, I feel like play to earn as a kind of a category will evolve. And that could be with or without NFT, but I think it's a promising category. And what Ankush also alluded to in terms of work, leaving Uber and let's say, playing a game as a profession, I feel like that will evolve beyond skill games and as a category. So that would be interesting to see.
Right. So I'll just pick two quick questions and we'll have one-line answers and I'll just randomly pick you guys to answer, right? So Joseph, will Meta change the gaming scope for mobile and PC gaming in a positive or negative way? Now, I'm not sure if it's the Facebook Meta or the Metaverse, but yeah, have a shot, have a go.
No, probably not negative. So I would say positive or nothing.
So that's the answer then. The other question is, do you pick specific games belong to a specific genre or category which are trending right now, which are good for monetary purpose, or do you pick games as a starter person which will become popular, trending over time? And now Ankush, Ali, just give one-line answers.
If you're an early stage startup and you identify a genre that's working well, go for it.
Okay.
If you're mature and you're you got the genius of Oliver Jones on your side, go invent something new and fresh.
Is it genius or is it dumb luck? But it's try and find those opportunities early. By the time everyone's talking about them on panels, it's too late.
Right. Akshay, one line from you as well on this.
Sorry, Anuj, I missed the question. Can you repeat it for me?
So I'll maybe give you another one since we have 1 minute.
Yeah.
So do you see small developers taking the NFT route to capitalize on the hype in the next year? Do you still see that trend? Like you have spoken about, say, the play to earn model. Do you see NFTs also, small studios will just be opportunistic?
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably one of probably the best spaces to get a non-linear advantage at this point in time. I would highly recommend experimenting there.
Right. And before we just wind up, Joseph, this is a specific one. I just wanted to, since it's a good question, will there be more international industry leaders like you who would like to start their companies in India like Leela did? Do you think that also happening more?
Yes, they're not as fast as I am coming to India, but they will be there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
We're already here.
Yeah. I'm following in Oliver's footsteps.
Awesome. It's right on 9 p.m., guys. So thank you very much for this lovely panel. Great answers from all of you, and hope the audience enjoyed this panel. See you next year.
Thanks, Anuj.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We can go to the backstage, guys.